I got the words in front of me, and sometimes I don't recognize what the hell it's done. It sounds great,
Yes.
but meaningful words, no, I'm not so sure.
Yeah, yeah. Hey, everybody out there. Welcome back to another episode of the Audiophiles. Per usual, it's Andy, it's John, and it is us sharing and digging into some music. So, John, you are going to offer up something for me to go off and check out. What have you got in the chamber?
So it's a band we've covered before, but it's been a minute, as they say. That band is the Psychedelic Furs,
Ooh, one of my favorite comics.
and it is not the first time I've said this, but their first album is the best album. Um, but there's another track off that, and this track is called Blacks slash Radio.
Hmm. Okay. All right. Well, I'm always down for listening to more psychedelic furs. You're right. It has been a while since we've listened to them, but I do like their sound from what I've gleaned from the material you've given me before. So let me go off, give this a spin, and then we can chop it up upon my return. Starts off, there's rolling drums, that chord progression that's distorted, and it's got this punk attitude that's only kind of like fortified by our singer whose name escapes me, his vocal delivery, which has that grit and edge to it that you often find in punk music. I also thought I heard like some sax notes in there as well. Some interesting. It's an interesting choice, injecting a little saxophone into this post punk that leans definitely into the punk side of that. So yeah, it's interesting to hear sax kind of injected in that. We've talked about it before and have heard it before, but it's not very common. So when I hear it, it's gonna stick out like a sore thumb. Yeah, interesting sound so far for sure. I'm not picking up on everything that he's saying. It sounded like he said something about being sick of sex and cars, and I think saying words in elliptical bars, and then it sounded like he said something about the Camry, which I mean it ties into the car motif, but given when it looks like this came out and when the Camry itself came out, I think I had to have misheard that. I doubt he would have been alluding to the Toyota sedan in this instance. But yeah, so far it sounds gritty, edgy, and with some saxophone. So I'm enjoying what I'm hearing so far. If it wasn't for the blacks in the South, my father's refrigerator factory would have closed down or something like that. That's an interesting line. It's like dissonant. it's a very pointed observational lyrics. I don't know exactly who they're aimed at, if it's someone specifically or just this kind of group or class of people. So yeah, I'm interested to see if this continues, if I can glean more accurately maybe who it's aimed at. But it definitely sounds pointed, almost like a angry piss take or something. Those drums. That was a nice little section there. I don't know if we'll call it a bridge, but it was something, and it was musically focused. There was this ascending work, and it was really underscored by the bass notes, and then it sort of peaks and then begins to descend and walk back down before we end up back here into another stanza. But that was, yeah, that was a lot of fun to go on that little ride. He just said something about the stupid something people and the meaningless lyric while I'm over here poring over what he could be saying and trying to understand it. Kind of, all right, is that aimed at me? Maybe. But I'm trying to pick up on what our man's saying here, and he's got that punk affectation in his voice where it's kind of hard for me to decipher. But again, he's all this allusion to like what sounds like conformity or whatever, like getting your hair cut, getting a job, and doing the radio. It all kind of feels like it's pointed at a certain group of conformists or I'm not really sure, but something that's taking on what feels like the mainstream. I mean, this feels counterculture in its own way, very much so, actually.
People when they do the hands and knees. Jealous trees call you Denny. Even that tree seems to whisper Denny. I love you till the world stops spinning. I love you till the world stops spinning. Get a car and do the twist. Paint it blue and do the dog. Get a car and do the twist.
Huh, nice little flourish there at the end on the drums. Yeah, that was a bit of a slog to kind of catch the lyrical content, though I did catch some, but the music has this like edgy and kind of jaggedness to the sound. And like I said before, for something that seems like it would be post punk, it's definitely still firmly holding on to the punk side of that sound. And it also at times kind of had this injection of like an avant garde kind of style because of that dissonant, almost ramshackly sounding saxophone. I mean, at times the sax is kind of like extending notes a bit and it doesn't have the dissonance, but there are times, obviously, when the sax comes to the forefront where it sounds most dissonant. And I think that does lean into that avant garde sound, which, judging by the looks of this video and kind of when it was shot, that was, I think, kind of around ish the peak of, avant garde experimentation in subgenres of rock and roll, post punk certainly being one of them that kind of flirted with that sound. So, yeah, but back to the lyrics that I've, caught very little of, or, certainly not enough to really form a clear picture. It did sound like this pointed satire at maybe this like yuppie class that's caught up in listening to the radio and listening to music in white shirts and their cars and all of these kind of like more mainstream or conformist type behaviors that it sounds like this guy's taking the piss out of. So I thought that was kind of interesting. I'm always down for some counterculture music that kind of put society under a microscope a bit and either viscerally attacks or satirizes it or somewhere in between, and this sort of sounds like that to me. I don't know, John can maybe clear that up for me when we get back to him, but yeah, this is a really good listen. I really got a few dashes of different kinds of subgenres, although they're all kind of connected. There was some really interesting experimentation going on here, particularly in the form of that saxophone. There also sounded like there could have been some like wah affected guitar, like that kind of like wow wow kind of whirring of the guitar beneath at certain points. Had a lot of energy, jagged and sharp at times. So yeah, I really enjoyed giving this thing a go, and I'd love to learn more about this track as we kind of dive deeper into the psychedelic furs here on the channel. So let's get back to John.
Rosie M. Banks, he's back. So you've had to listen to Blacks Slash Radio by Psychedelic Furs. What do you think?
Well, I got to be honest, with a name like that, that's so like, obscure and kind of like hard to drill down. I was actually surprised to hear that I heard both of these items or nouns alluded to throughout the track, but it kind of surprised me in the ways that they were, but also kind of made me like smile a little bit as well. So yeah, it's a pretty long song with a fairly large amount of lyrics, so I kind of want to go over this and like, dude, come on now. Like, it was a job that I had deciphering all of this. But I will say I loved his tone. Like I think it matched this. It's just come on. I'm, an American listening to that really cutting, biting British kind of. I know this is post-punk-ish, but they're still firmly grasping the punk aspect of it, particularly in his vocal delivery. So the song is instantly propelled by a lively, distorted chord progression and the steady rolling drum beat that is rich with the usage of toms, particularly the floor tom. You hear a lot of lower end drum being used here. I think I'm also catching what sounds like saxophone in it, which I have confirmed for me later. His name escapes me, the singer, because as you alluded to, it's been a minute since we've done these guys, but he comes in and he has, here we go, more than just a dash of that punk strain and edge to his vocal delivery. And while it sounds great in this musical setting, as I mentioned, I struggled to pick up what he was singing. I know the first line started with something like sick of the sex and the something about the cars. I assume he means the vehicle and not the band. He continues and saying the words in elliptical bars. And given the line following this one sounded to me like he referenced a Camry, I'm not confident I interpreted it correctly. Though, go ahead.
Before you continue, I will say this. I got the words in front of me, and sometimes I don't recognize what the hell it's done. It sounds great,
Yes.
but meaningful words, no, I'm not so sure.
Yeah, yeah.
And there,
Maybe go ahead.
there's multiple websites where there's still gaps in this, where no one has ever figured out
Yeah.
a couple of words. I have bunged something in. It sounded to me like a certain word, which is a product which only came into production and existence 10 years ago, so it can't be that. But
That's
it does sound.
That's exactly where I'm
Uh,
at with this Camry shit. The Camry was released in
yeah.
'82. This looks like it may have beaten it by a few years, judging by the video production. So I'm like, well, he is talking about cars, but I don't think it's the Toyota sedan he's alluding to here.
But once you hear that, you can't unhear it. It's always going to be
Exactly,
that.
exactly.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of the most middle of the road, like low middle income vehicle, the Toyota Camry, trusty but very bland. But yeah, I was like, there's no way.
So right, so don't worry too much. The lyrics are fantastic, don't get me wrong, but there's no chance of you getting them on first listen.
Well,
No
I'm
chance.
very much looking forward to when you provide clarity surrounding them. So I do hear with clarity him saying everybody is doing the fraction. So I think I'm back on track for now. Most of the first two lines of the next stanza flew over my head, but the next two were much more discernible as he sings, "If it wasn't for the blacks in the South, my father's refrigerator factory would close down," which I thought was interesting. It makes me think of like this class disparity, this racial gap, all these things that a lot of like Western countries have dealt with or are still, if you can fucking believe it, dealing with now. He then repeats a couple lines about this her that I don't catch before the song briefly gives way to this wildly interesting bit of like almost dissonant. And when I say almost, it really is dissonant wailing saxophone. But this is pretty short-lived as we quickly get swept back into another verse. So goddamn, buckle up, Andy. You're trying to catch this shit. This go around, I have a bit more success in picking up what's on offer lyrically as our man belts out. I feel just like money. I feel just like money inside, and the women turn blue around 45. The stupid and the infantile listen to records with the A-bomb hairstyle. Now, I'm not sure what an A-bomb hairstyle is, but these are still interesting lyrics, and I'm sure there has to be like a cohesive message behind this, which I'm sure you'll get to as you alluded to the lyrics being great. I'm sure they're great because they do a good job in telling whatever the story is, but I'm not having success cobbling that together at this juncture. So some of his observations are interesting and rather pointed. It sounds like he's taking the piss out of a certain group or type of people. I'm pretty sure that the next stanza is one repeated from earlier, but this time I catch the first line, and I'm not sure, or I'm sorry, not just the last two as I had before. He sings, "When I went for a job, I had to trade in my hair," which that made me chuckle. Which seems like an eye roll at this idea of giving up personal identity for the sake of conforming to, societal normatives. Again, he mentions the blacks in the South having his, propping up his pop's refrigerator factory. So good on them. We got another round of that stanza with the her reference, which is capped off by a killer bit of like drum fill work that feels naturally like it's going to be a segue that will propel us into the next portion of the tune, and lo and behold, it does. And we're firmly back into the world where the manic saxophone reigns as king. And the deeper we get into this motif, the music begins to like ascend, particularly the bass notes as I'm following them step by step. And just as it sort of reaches its peak, the bass then begins to walk down the other side of the mountain, so to speak. And then the music shifts, and we're back into the next stanza of lyrics around the 406 mark. And then he mentions something about a shirt and a tie before another reference to a haircut. This guy does not like getting dressed up. Nor does he like a barber. And just based on the attitude of his voice, it sounds like these, aren't things that he's keen on. This stanza is complemented by more of that sax work injected into this raucous, punky, post-punky cacophony that they've crafted. And then he repeats the line, "I'll love you till the world stops spinning." And I don't think he's talking about the shirt and the tie or the haircuts at this point, though it's the first time like everything else sounded like it was kind of like this biting observational satire type stuff. But here he's just confessing his love, which is interesting. And I'm not sure how it fits or is cobbled into the rest of the narrative, but that caught my attention. He sings an interesting standalone line, "doing the radio." And then that kind of like struck my curiosity. I wonder what it means for one to do the radio. And given the context of the song and the narrative in particular, is this slang for like selling out or going commercial? It's interesting stuff. The next stanza continues to poke and prod at this class or kind of people. The kind that go to parties when they get when they get a white shirt and listen to records whilst wearing a shirt and tie. I think I'm picking up on what he's saying here. I also caught him singing "the stupid something people" and "the meaningless drivel." The stupid something people and the meaningless lyric, which I kind of took personally at this point in the song, given how much I've invested in deciphering these goddamn lyrics. So felt like he was having a bit of fun there at my expense. The drums march along as the sax notes kind of accent each of the lines, though I missed the first two of the next portion, something about trees and whispering. But then, with clarity, I catch him repeat, again, I'll love you till the world stops spinning. Again, I also heard something about a car and a dog and doing the twist as the heavy guitars can be heard whirring over top this hard-lined rhythm section. Our singer then repeats the lines about getting a car and doing the twist, and he dismounts on that line. The drummer then peppers us with some like punctuating cymbal work, and then a roll on the skins, and then the song comes to an end pretty tautly. So this was an edgy and kind of jagged song that sounded like it leaned into, as I mentioned before, the punk aspect of the post-punk genre, and even at times flirted with this sort of off-the-rails avant-garde sound, which was also, I think, around, judging again by the aesthetic, I'm not sure the exact year here, was around the time that avant-garde sound and post-punk were kind of creating synergy with one another. I mean, I would have to think that this is sometime around the era of Per Ubu, which, from my American eyes, is sort of maybe the poster child for American avant-garde post-punk music, and I would have to think that this is a contemporary of it. So yeah, it's got that going for it as well, which all makes for this really interesting sound. I think it was really underscored by that dissonant sax work that felt, kind of flying off the rails there. And although it was a slog to catch much of the lyrical content, it did have this feeling of like I mentioned earlier, satire or biting observational offerings about this sort of emerging yuppie class and mentality that was creeping into the masses. I would say around this time as well. You know what I mean? Everybody had had their kind of fill of the hippie movement. I think we were kind of society, maybe not rock and roll, but society was kind of starting to move into the, this headspace of where a Thatcher type, a Reagan type could become welcome. And then the proliferation of Wall Street investment and the deregulation of companies, or deregulation, pardon me, of companies. So, and major corporations. So it felt like this was like the beginning of that, and then him making note of it, while also underscoring in that line about the blacks that minority blue collar jobs are the backbone of business and keep things alive and local and homemade. So that's what educated my assumption about that. You can expand on it as you get into the lyrics, but all in all, this had a very counterculture energy and bite, with enough venom to kind of leave a lasting impression. So please tell me a bit more about this track, John.
Yeah, Andy, interesting stuff. So yeah, we covered psychedelics before on the channel a few years ago. The song "Fall." I'll put a link into that below. I went on to great extent about the album and stuff like that, so I won't cover the same ground. Just to mention, keep you up to date. Psychedelic Furs, English rock band, founded in London in early 1977. They're known as post-punk, new wave, alternative rock, and sort of punk leanings as well, particularly at the start. The original UK album had 9 tracks. When it went across to America, it contained 10 tracks, but they deleted 1 track from the UK album and replaced it with 2 others. And the track they deleted was Blacks/Radio, which I shall get into in a second. So the band: Richard Butler, lead and background vocals, John Ashton guitar, Tim Butler bass guitar, Vince Ely drums, Roger Morris guitar, and Duncan Kilburn saxophone. And this has cropped up in other episodes along the way. The producer was Steve Lillywhite, and this was the very album which he discovered that gated reverb sound on the drums that became ubiquitous throughout the 80s, that sound of the drums. This track maybe not so much as others, but yeah, really interesting. So there's a really nice little write-up from Post Punk Monk, which is a catchy name for a website. And they say Blacks/Radio by the Psychedelic Furs is a gritty 7-minute post-punk masterpiece that serves as one of the darkest anchors of their 1980 self-titled debut album. Produced by Steve Lillywhite, the song encapsulates the band's early, uncompromising Wall of Sound style before they transitioned into the more polished, radio-friendly new wave pop of the mid-80s, which I dislike. In fact, the track was considered so raw and lyrically provocative at the time that Columbia Records completely removed it from the original US version of the album, replacing it with friendlier, non-album singles. They completely misunderstood it. The track is built over an aggressive, repetitive, distorted chord pattern that mirrors Lou Reed's gritty, drone-heavy guitar work. Meanwhile, Richard Butler's half-spoken, sneering vocal delivery pulls heavily from David Bowie's Aladdin Sane era glam rock theatricality. Unlike standard punk bands of the era, the Furs utilized Duncan Kilburn's saxophone not for brassy hooks, but for wild, jarring, and avant-garde solos. His performance on this track provides a chaotic counterpoint to the raging guitars. Lyrically, Blacks/Radio is a surreal, biting satire of British society, generational boredom, and the commercialization of youth culture. Richard Butler attacks the superficiality of modern life through fragmented imagery. So the four main points that he's making of this is: one, the sort of commodification of the punk movement, and he sort of Butler mocks the sanitized subcultures of the era with lines like "the stupid and the stupid are the infantile, listen to records with the A-bomb hairstyle," and he's critiquing kids who adopt radical aesthetics like that hairstyle just to conform, wear ties, and listen to meaningless lyrics at parties. There's There's a corporate conformity as well. The line when I went for a job, I had to trade in my hair and think of ideas in a parking lot chair
Yeah.
addresses the exhausting reality of corporate compliance. To survive the workforce, youth must sacrifice their identity and settle into a comfortable bourgeois office environment. Globalization and post-colonial exploitation. The most controversial couplet, which led to the US censorship, one for the blacks in the South. My father's refrigerator factory was closed down. Far from being racist, the lyric is a sharp, anti-imperialistic critique of British capitalism.
How
But there's
fucking
pointed
it's just so
out,
funny because I know that these are corporate white collar idiots making these decisions, and it underscores the huge gulf between their reality and everyone else's reality. That they would hear that line and just hear someone identified by color and assume it's a negative thing when really they're underscoring that people like those motherfuckers making that call are the problem. So yeah, it's just I'm sorry that revelation just is vexing. It also makes me smile that someone recognized that and put it in a rock song.
there's another dimension to this as well, which I'll get into a
Okay.
little later. So Butler was pointing out how the Western working class comfort and manufacturing industries rely directly on the cheap, exploited labor of the global South.
Yeah. Like
And
below Europe essentially is what you're saying, like
yeah,
Africa and so forth. Yeah.
exactly, in South America
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
Asian subcontinent. And sensory overload, the refrain during the radio and being sick of the sex and the sound of the cars reflects a overarching existential dread. The narrator is entirely suffocated by the noise, shallow mating rituals, and endless consumerism of the 80s. There is a little bit in a piece in this where he repeats certain motifs within a lot of the songs throughout the album. One of the words he repeats all the time is stupid. And it's like a cynical blanket for society, youth culture, and the commercialization of things. Um, he talks about stupid people, stupid friends, stupid dreams, and even stupid sea. Um,
The, I'm sorry, really quickly. Now that he's all these things that are stupid, and he explicitly says something about the stupid lyric that, or fixating on the lyric and that being stupid. That's almost funny because in a way it almost foretold their own situation with the lyric about the blacks and getting caught up on that and being stupid for not understanding it or hanging on to it and not seeing the bigger picture. Okay, that just makes me smile even more because it's almost like they read their own palm or tea leaves, with that line.
Yeah, there's a couple of others. Useless is a word that he uses throughout many of the songs. Um, Again, it's this post-punk alienation and political exhaustion, etc., and no control over your environment. So he references useless lives, useless sound, useless drivel, and useless gods. Flowers comes up a lot as a symbol of romance in 4, 5. There's something a song called Flowers as well, which helps. Carpet or floor again, it talks. It's weird, this sort of claustrophobic domestic imagery, which again he uses in 5 songs, and dancing or reeling, which he talks about in this one as well. So there's lots of really interesting stuff going on throughout, thematically throughout the song. So the lyrics is a really interesting. I really like them. I'm sick of the sex and the sound of their cars and saying the words in elliptical bars. Dancing can be such an attraction when everybody is doing a fraction. It's like an imagined dance craze, I should think.
Mhm.
When I went for a job, I had to trade in my hair and think of ideas in a Parker Knoll chair. If it wasn't for the blacks in the South, father's refrigerator factory would close down. Denise is such a dream, let her. Put it in the crutch of her knee, let her. Put it in a couch of fabrics, let her. I feel just like money. I feel just like money. I feel just like money inside. And the woman turned blue at around 45. The stupid and the stupid are the infantile. Listen to records with the A-bomb hairstyle.
Oh,
Um,
is the reference to women turning blue at 45 meaning changing their political affiliation to Tory at around that age? Because I just dawned on me that y'all's colors are the flip flop of
yes.
ours. So then the turning blue, I thought it was this weird reference to menopause or something, which I didn't understand. But now I sort of understand that it's like they get to a certain age.
Autoerotic,
Yeah.
asphyxiation.
Yeah, maybe. But yeah, I was more thinking of the menopause thing. But
Fair
the
enough.
political, the politics, it all makes sense now. Okay.
So again, back to the refrain. So when I went for a job, I had a trade in my hair and think of ideas in a parking lot chair. One for the blacks in the south. My father's refrigerator factory that closed down. Denise is such a dream. Let her put it in the crutch of her knee. Let her put it in a couch of. It does sound to me like Febreze, which is a thing that you squirt to
Yes.
make fabric smell better, but
Yeah,
it
yeah.
can't be that. But it's put it in a couch of Febreze. Let her, and he repeats that again. And that's how the drums build. And you're right, it's the bass that sort of takes the bend in the road, as it were, and leads you down into the second song, which is
Yeah.
Radios. And when it kicks back in, I just love that transition. It says, "You are at the relay in a shirt and tie. You cut your hair with a scissor at the hotel relay. Jealous trees call you Denny. Even the trees seem to whisper, Denny. I love you till the world stops spinning. I love you till the world stops spinning. Doing the radio." People go to parties when they get a white shirt. They listen to records in a shirt and tie. The stupid and the meaningless drivel. The stupid and the people and the meaningless lyric. Happening to people when they do their hands and knees. Jealous trees call you Dene. Even the trees seem to whisper Dene. I love you till the world stops spinning. I love you till the world stops spinning. Get a car and do the twist. Paint it blue and do the dog. Get a car and do the twist.
Hmm.
Twists. So, just a couple of things. Parker Knoll is a British manufacturing furniture company formed in 1931 by British furniture manufacturer Frederick Parker and Willy Knoll, a German inventor of a new form of sprung furniture. With roots in the manufacture of high quality furniture, the brand concentrated on mass market products from the 30s to the 90s. The company was listed on the London Stock Exchange in 1950. In the late 70s, my parents had a leather Parker Knoll three-piece suite, and the two chairs were recliners, and they were the dog's bonnets. They seemed
Yeah.
massive to me. My dad's 6'6", and he fitted on one, so it did seem like this huge landscape. So yeah, fond memories. Now, really interesting quote here. Richard Butler said this: "They thought blacks/radios was racist, which on a superficial level you could think that it was. That it was taken from an Andy Warhol quote. He was asked if he liked black people, and as usual, he replied very tongue-in-cheek, and this is Andy Warhol's direct quote: "If it wasn't for the blacks in the South, my father's refrigerator business would close down." I thought, wow, that's a great quote, and used it, and then people didn't see the irony in it. Yeah, so that's it. That's all I've got on it, actually. But I think this is a really interesting sound and attitude as well. And it's that point you're quite right with the sort of almost art rock or you know avant-garde mixing with post-punk and all these other attitudes. It creates a really good sound on this album, and I'm
Yeah.
super fond of it. And then they went the way of sort of more mainstream afterwards, and people really like the next couple of albums. Not for me, but I absolutely adore this. So I thought I'd give you another track 'cause it's not.
Yeah, no, I like I really love the messaging behind this track, and
Yeah.
musically, it's definitely got enough going on for it to keep you interested. I think it's that what I just said. I think is most underscored by the existence of that weird saxophone
Yeah.
that rears its head every so often. But yeah, I mean, the guitar work in this is fabulous. The drums and bass work as well. So yeah, good.
No, you're
Really
right.
good
It's
tune.
the secret weapon is that sax, and quite often you get these punk, not even post-punk, but punk bands have crazy saxophones in them as well. But this was used really like heavy artillery. It was great. But there you go.
Yeah.
All right, I should wrap things up. Thanks for listening to this, Andy.
Thank
Folks
you.
out there, please tell us what you think. If you like this, do hit the like button, and drop some comments. Perhaps you've recently been doing the dog dance-wise, that is, or the radio. Please tell us what you think. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And if you haven't subscribed already, please do. We really appreciate everybody who does support the channel, and of course, our family refrigerator factory
Yeah.
down south. That being said, thanks so much for watching, and we'll see all of you in the next episode of the Audiophiles.
See you later, guys.